There comes a moment when your absence speaks louder than your words ever could. People often take for granted the very presence that gives them strength, joy, and direction. They assume you'll always be there, no matter what, like the air they breathe. But when you decide to step back, when you leave not out of anger but out of self-respect and strength, everything changes. Suddenly, the comfort they depended on is gone, the routine they leaned on is broken, and the silence that follows your absence becomes deafening. That is when the truth hits. Your presence mattered more than they ever admitted, and now in your absence they feel lost. This is not about playing games or trying to manipulate. This is about reclaiming your power. It's about knowing that sometimes the most loving, powerful thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from being taken for granted, because it is in your absence, not your constant presence, that others are forced to wake up. That's when clarity strikes. That's when they realize how deeply your presence shaped their world. When you leave, something powerful takes place that words alone could never achieve. Presence often goes unnoticed because it is constant, like the sun rising each day or the air we breathe. People become accustomed to it, and in that familiarity, they forget its true value. But the moment it's gone, the silence is loud, the emptiness is undeniable, and clarity strikes. It's in that very absence that a realization begins to unfold, a realization of what you truly meant, of the role you played, of how much weight your presence carried in their life. The comfort that once felt permanent suddenly feels fragile, and in that fragility, awareness is born. Clarity does not arrive gently, it doesn't whisper, it hits like a wave. When you walk away, it forces the other person to confront reality without the shield of your presence. They start to notice the little things, the lack of laughter that once filled the room, the absence of your support in moments they took for granted, the sudden quiet where your voice used to echo. These details, which blended into the background before, now become glaringly obvious. They see them not because they are new, but because your absence has stripped away the noise of comfort. That is what clarity does. It takes what was hidden in plain sight and makes it impossible to ignore. This kind of clarity is uncomfortable because it exposes the truth that was too easy to overlook while you were still around. When you were there, they didn't have to question, didn't have to think, didn't have to wonder. They could lean on the certainty of your presence. But when you leave, the autopilot stops. The habit is broken. They are forced to stop and ask themselves questions they never wanted to face. Why didn't I see their value sooner? Why did I let my comfort turn into carelessness? Why did I assume they would always stay? Those questions aren't just reflections. They are confrontations, and they come only because absence makes what was once invisible visible. What's even more powerful is that this clarity doesn't only happen to them, it happens to you as well. Your own absence from their life becomes a mirror for you too. You begin to see with fresh eyes what you tolerated, what you gave, and what you deserve. The space you create by walking away isn't empty, it's filled with truth. You see yourself differently, stronger, more valuable, no longer blurred by the noise of being overlooked. That clarity allows you to stand taller, to breathe freer, and to finally recognize your worth without waiting for someone else to validate it. So when you leave, it isn't about punishment or playing games. It's about allowing clarity to do its work. It's about creating the silence where the truth can finally be heard, and in that silence, they see you for what you always were, essential, irreplaceable, and deeply valuable. When you choose to leave, many people will misinterpret it as weakness, as if stepping away means giving up. But the reality is the opposite. Leaving is an act of immense strength. It takes far more courage to walk away from what diminishes you than it does to stay and accept less than you deserve. Anyone can stay in a cycle, anyone can tolerate being overlooked, but it takes a strong soul to say enough. That decision isn't born from anger, it's born from respect. Respect for yourself, respect for your energy, and respect for the love you know you are worthy of receiving. Strength is not loud, and it's not about making a scene. Sometimes strength is quiet. It's the steady decision to remove yourself from spaces that no longer nourish your heart. It's the quiet conviction to no longer explain, no longer plead, no longer beg to be valued. Instead, it's the inner voice that says, I matter, I am whole, and I refuse to remain where I'm treated as anything less. That is strength in its purest form. It doesn't come from pride. It comes from self-awareness, from knowing that your worth cannot be debated. When you leave, you are proving to yourself that you can stand on your own 2 feet, that you are not chained to the approval or validation of anyone else. That's what makes leaving so powerful. It's a declaration that you are no longer willing to be bound by fear. Fear of loneliness, fear of judgment, fear of what might happen next. Walking away is the courage to step into the unknown because you trust yourself enough to know you will be okay, even better than okay. And that strength transforms you from the inside out. For the one who loses you, your departure sends a shockwave. It challenges the assumption that you would always remain no matter what. Suddenly, they are confronted with the undeniable truth that your presence was a privilege, not a guarantee. That realization often sparks regret, reflection, even change. But none of that would happen if you hadn't chosen strength over settling. By leaving, you shift the entire dynamic. You show that your love is not endless when it comes at the cost of your self-respect. But the greatest impact of leaving as an act of strength is what it does for you. It redefines your own identity. No longer are you someone who tolerates being undervalued. You become someone who commands respect simply because you respect yourself. You stop carrying the burden of proving your worth to others and instead begin living in alignment with it. And from that place of strength, every decision you make, every step you take is infused with power. You stop asking for what you deserve. You begin expecting it. That is why leaving is never weakness. It is the loudest, clearest, most unshakable expression of strength you will ever embody. It's proof that you honor yourself enough to walk away from anything that does not honor you back. When you leave, you create something most people run from: space, and in that space, reflection begins. Reflection is uncomfortable, and that's why so many avoid it. As long as you are present, as long as you are filling the silence with your voice, your energy, your care, there's no real need for him to stop and think. You're the safety net, the steady rhythm, the constant he leans on. But the moment you step away, the silence becomes unavoidable, and in that silence he is forced to reflect. He starts to notice the absence where your presence used to be, and the reality of that absence forces him to look inward in a way he never did before. Reflection is like a mirror, one that doesn't lie. Without you there, he is forced to confront questions he avoided for too long. Why didn't I value them when I had the chance? Why did I assume they would always stay? Why was I blind to the love, the effort, the presence that they poured into my life? These aren't questions he can escape in your absence. They follow him in the quiet moments, in the stillness of nights, in the sudden recognition of what feels missing. That's the gift of distance. It brings to the surface what was buried under comfort and routine. But this reflection doesn't just belong to him. It belongs to you as well. When you walk away, you create space for your own reflection. You finally have the distance to see clearly what you were giving, what you were tolerating, what you were sacrificing. In the noise of being present for someone else, you can lose track of yourself. But in your absence from them, you return to yourself. You reflect on what you want, what you need, what you truly deserve. You start to see patterns in your own choices, places where you stayed silent when you should have spoken, where you settled when you should have stood tall. That reflection can be uncomfortable too, but it is the kind that transforms you. Reflection is the birthplace of growth. Without it, people stay the same, repeating cycles, making the same mistakes, taking the same things for granted. With it, change becomes possible. For him, reflection might open his eyes to your worth, showing him clearly what he had and lost. For you, reflection becomes the guide that leads you back to yourself, reminding you that your love is powerful but should never come at the expense of your self-respect. Walking away is not about silence for the sake of silence. It's about creating the space where truth has no choice but to rise. And in that space, reflection begins its work. For both sides, it is a mirror that cannot be ignored, and once you've looked into that mirror, you can never see things the same way again. When you decide to leave, you do more than create silence. You disrupt the rhythm. Every relationship, every connection builds a pattern over time. It could be the pattern of you always forgiving first, always reaching out to smooth things over, always giving more than you receive. These patterns become so ingrained that they feel natural, almost invisible. He gets used to them, even comes to expect them, because that's the way the dance has always gone. But the moment you walk away, the steps of that dance stop. The music cuts off, the cycle breaks, and when the cycle breaks, the reality he avoided comes rushing in. People rarely change while the patterns remain the same. If you're always there to cushion the fall, he never feels the consequences of his actions. If you're always quick to forgive, he never learns the value of your patience. If you're always the one to stay, no matter what, he never fears losing you. That is the trap of unhealthy patterns. They protect the other person from reality while draining you of your energy. But leaving changes all of that instantly. It rips away the safety net. It forces him to realize that nothing is guaranteed, that your presence is not unconditional when it comes at the cost of your worth. Breaking a pattern is not easy, not for him and not for you. For you, it means going against your instinct to give, to heal, to stay. It means challenging the role you've played for so long. That's why leaving feels so heavy. It's not just about walking away from him, it's about walking away from the cycle itself. And yet, that is where true transformation lies. When you disrupt the rhythm, you open the door to a new way of relating, one built not on assumptions and imbalance, but on clarity and respect. For him, the disruption is jarring. He no longer has the comfort of assuming you'll always remain. He has to face the reality that actions have consequences, that love must be nurtured, and that patterns of neglect or complacency can destroy even the strongest connections. Your absence forces him to confront what he avoided, because the old rhythm he relied on has been broken, and there's no guarantee it can ever be restored. That disruption alone is often what shakes someone awake to the truth. And for you, breaking the pattern is liberation. It's you stepping out of the loop of giving without receiving, of waiting without fulfillment, of shrinking yourself to maintain the comfort of someone else. The moment you walk away, you claim your freedom from the cycle, and with that freedom comes new strength, new standards, and a new vision for yourself. You stop repeating the old story and start writing a new one. Leaving doesn't just end a relationship dynamic, it ends the habits that kept you trapped. And once that cycle is broken, neither you nor he can ever see things the same way again. That is the power of walking away. It doesn't just change the present, it transforms the entire pattern of the future. When you leave, you create a powerful lesson about value. Human beings often fail to recognize the worth of what they have until it's gone. As long as you're present, giving, loving, forgiving, your presence becomes familiar, almost like air. It's essential, but it's taken for granted because it's always there. The moment you step away, however, that illusion shatters. Suddenly, the absence of your love, your care, your energy creates a void that cannot be ignored. It is in that void that value becomes undeniable. When you were there, every word you spoke, every act of kindness, every moment of patience might have been overlooked. But once you leave, he begins to see those details in sharper focus. The way you listened without judgment, the way you supported him when no one else did, the way your presence brought calm into the storm, those moments no longer feel small, they feel irreplaceable. It is only when he loses access to them that their true weight becomes clear. That's the paradox of value. It shines brightest in absence, but this isn't just about him realizing your worth. It's about you realizing it too. When you step away, you gain the clarity to see how much you gave and how much of yourself you invested. You begin to measure whether what you received was equal to what you poured out. Walking away gives you the distance to stop minimizing your own value. It helps you see that what you bring is extraordinary and that not everyone is worthy of holding that gift. You stop apologizing for needing reciprocity. You stop shrinking yourself to fit someone else's comfort. Instead, you begin to own your value in a way you may never have before. For him, your absence becomes a mirror reflecting his choices. It shows him where he failed to appreciate, where he failed to nurture, where he failed to rise to the level of your love. That lesson can be painful, but it is also transformative. Sometimes people only learn how priceless something is when the privilege of having it is taken away. And whether he admits it or not, that lesson changes him. It forces him to reevaluate not just what he lost, but how he must show up differently in any connection moving forward. For you, the lesson of value is empowering. It shifts you from asking, "Why didn't he see my worth?" to declaring, "I see my worth and that's enough." That mindset changes everything about how you carry yourself, about the boundaries you set, about the love you allow into your life. You are no longer at the mercy of someone else's recognition because you've already recognized yourself. That is the ultimate lesson. Your value is not dependent on being seen. It is inherent, unshakable, and always present, whether others acknowledge it or not. Walking away teaches both sides something they would not have learned otherwise. For him, it is a reminder that love is not guaranteed and must be cherished. For you, it is the awakening to the fact that your worth does not decrease simply because someone failed to honor it. And once you embody that truth, you'll never allow yourself to be undervalued again. When you walk away, you don't just leave behind a person. You step into your own power. Too often, people confuse staying with strength. They think endurance is the same as courage, that holding on is the same as love. But true strength isn't proven in how tightly you cling. It's proven in how boldly you can let go. Walking away is not weakness. It is a declaration that you refuse to abandon yourself in order to hold on to someone else. It is an act of reclaiming your voice, your dignity, and your future. The moment you step out, something shifts inside you. You begin to realize that power isn't about controlling others or forcing them to see your worth. Power is about deciding that your life, your happiness, and your peace are non-negotiable, and that decision is magnetic. When you walk away with clarity and self-respect, you radiate an energy that commands attention. Suddenly, the person who once took you for granted begins to feel the weight of your absence, not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. That is real power. Quiet, undeniable, and deeply transformative. For him, your departure is a wake-up call. It forces him to see that your love wasn't owed, your presence wasn't permanent, and your patience wasn't infinite. He begins to feel the imbalance of power flip, not in a way that humiliates him, but in a way that teaches him. He sees that your ability to walk away means you were never dependent on him for your identity. It teaches him that relationships are not about control, but about choice. Your choice to stay or go, to give or to withdraw. And once you make that choice to leave, he can't ignore the reality that he no longer holds the same influence he once thought he did. But the true power lies in what it awakens within you. Walking away reminds you that you are not bound by anyone else's treatment of you. You are free to create new chapters, to rewrite the story of your life, to set standards that reflect your highest self. This power is not loud or aggressive. It's steady, grounded, and unshakable. It's the kind of power that doesn't beg to be recognized because it's already rooted in truth. You stop living for approval and start living from alignment. And here's the beauty of it. Once you step into this power, everything changes. The way you carry yourself shifts. The way you speak shifts. The way you love shifts. You are no longer afraid of being alone because you've realized that solitude with self-respect is far richer than companionship without it. You are no longer afraid of endings because you know every ending is just the beginning of something greater. You are no longer afraid of walking away because you understand now. It was never the end of your power. It was the discovery of it. When you look at the bigger picture, the act of leaving is not just about someone else feeling lost. It's about you finding yourself. Every word, every key point, leads back to one undeniable truth. Your worth shines brightest when you refuse to settle for less than you deserve. Walking away may create emptiness for him, but for you, it creates space to grow, to heal, to rediscover the parts of yourself that may have been dimmed in the process of giving too much. That space is not a void. It is the fertile ground for transformation. And while he may be left searching in the silence, you are already beginning to rise. The power of your departure lies in its ability to disrupt complacency. For him, it is a sudden confrontation with the reality of what he has lost. For you, it is a clean break from patterns that kept you small. This dual effect, the void he feels and the freedom you gain, creates a sharp contrast that highlights the true value of your presence. He begins to see what he overlooked, and you begin to see what you've always carried within. That shift is what makes walking away such a profound catalyst for change. It isn't punishment, it's revelation, and yet walking away is not just about creating change for him. It is about stepping into your own strength with clarity. It teaches you that love without respect cannot sustain itself, that presence without appreciation has no foundation, and that your energy is a gift, not a guarantee. Each step you take away from what no longer serves you is also a step toward the life you are meant to live. The loss he feels is matched by the liberation you experience, and that is a trade that always works in your favor. But the lesson goes even deeper. Leaving is not about proving a point, it's about honoring yourself. It's about recognizing that you do not have to stay in spaces that undervalue you just to be seen. You do not have to wait for someone else's recognition to validate your worth. You are already complete. You are already whole, and when you step away from someone who made you feel otherwise, you send a powerful message not only to them but also to yourself, that you refuse to abandon who you are just to keep someone else comfortable. That is the kind of decision that rewrites your story forever. So, the conclusion of this journey is simple yet profound. When you leave, he may feel lost, but you are finally found. He may start searching outward, but you begin searching inward. And what you discover within yourself is infinitely more powerful than anything you left behind. Walking away is not the end of love. It is the beginning of self-love. It is not the collapse of your world, it is the opening of a new one. And once you step into that world with strength, clarity, and unshakable self-worth, you will never again allow yourself to be diminished. You will no longer chase, because you've realized that the one worth finding has always been you. Thank you for being here today, for giving your time, your energy, and most importantly, your open heart to this message. What we've explored together isn't just about relationships, it's about self-discovery, self-respect, and the courage to honor your own worth. Every word was meant to remind you that you hold the power to decide where you belong, and that your presence is never something to be taken lightly. As you walk away from this moment, I want you to carry one truth with you. You are not defined by who notices your absence. You are defined by how you value your own presence. That awareness alone can change everything in your life. It can transform how you love, how you set boundaries, and how you step into every single day. So I want to thank you again, not just for listening, but for being willing to reflect, to grow, and to challenge the old patterns that may have held you back. You've taken a step today that many never dare to take, the step toward deeper self-worth, and for that you should be proud. As we close, remember this: life is too short to stay unseen, unheard, or unappreciated. Your courage to walk away when needed isn't a sign of loss, it's a declaration of strength. And every time you choose yourself, you create space for the love, respect, and joy that you truly deserve. With that, I'll say thank you once more from the bottom of my heart. Take this message with you, let it live in your actions, and let it fuel your future. Until we meet again, stay strong, stay true, and never forget, you are worthy. Goodbye for now, and may your journey ahead be filled with light.